Hello, everyone, and welcome to your Sunday night edition of the TII podcast. My name is Craig Dennett, and I'm your host this evening as we get ready to look back on what was a really disappointing day for Rangers yet again, drawing 3 each away to Hibs at Easter Road. Joining me to talk through all that, as well as the January transfer window and a bit of a look ahead to that as well. We've got Ross Chalmers. How you doing, Ross?
Yeah, I'm okay, Craig. Yep, thanks for having me. I'm buzzing to be back on to talk about Rangers dropping points again. It feels good. But yeah, overall, I'm fine. I'm ready to get stuck into this.
We're also joined by JB. How you doing, JB?
Yeah, it was much better this time yesterday. I think we're still on cloud 9 this time yesterday, but as anticipated, they brought us back down to earth with a bump. So yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, they definitely did. The Rangers, the high of winning the Old Firm game lasted a whole 3 days. They let us enjoy that before bringing us back down with a bump. I think we all saw it coming, which is maybe the most galling part of it all. We were all talking last night, joking a bit about wait till we struggle away at Easter Road and get a point or drop some more points. And we all kind of knew it was coming, and we were talking just before we came on here, Ross, and it just seemed we're all disappointed Rangers lost, but no one's surprised by it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, the inconsistency of Rangers' performances this season, I think were actually highlighted in that game completely. I mean, there was two sides of Rangers today. I thought, especially in that first 25, 30 minutes, I thought we've seen a lot of the best that we've seen from Rangers this season. Actually, I thought they played at a higher level in that first 30 minutes than they did against Celtic at times. I thought some of the football they played on the break especially was really, really good. I remember I moved in the right-hand side where it was fast flowing from the back and Diamandi get played in, and unfortunately we don't make anything from that one, but I just thought the football around was really good. And then you see the other side. You see the defensive kind of fragility that we have throughout this team. I mean, we'll go through all the goals, I'm sure, but the first goal just again shows you that we just don't have that physicality in the back line that really you're looking for in these games. Soft penalty, of course. And then the third one again is just no physicality in the box to deal with a set piece. So yeah, it's I was going to say a game of two halves, maybe not as far as that, but again, we're just seeing that this Rangers squad kind of, the mentality to play away from home, it doesn't really look like they've grasped it yet. They don't really understand what's required in these games. Game management as well comes into it, control of the game, and even at 2-0, Rangers were the better team, but you didn't feel like they had a real hold of that game. And Hibs, I thought, started the game and made it a bit of a basketball game end to end, and we benefit from that. We know as Rangers fans that is the type of game you want us to play, right? Because if you're going up against another side and you've got the better players, you're probably going to come out on the positive end of that. Hibs changed their shape a little bit, changed their mentality, and we just didn't really adjust to it. And unfortunately, I don't think it would be harsh to say that we could have ended up losing that game today, which is, I said to you before we came on, Craig, to score 3 goals away from home and not win the game is just criminal. It's really poor. And we'll dig into the details on that. It's probably best to say from the top, I'm gutted for Hamza Igamane, to score a hat-trick away from home, and you're not going to really get the headlines that you probably deserve from that. Yeah, it's really disappointing. So yeah, let's dig into the detail a bit more.
Yeah, we will dig into detail on all of that. Ross, you mentioned there about this team hasn't quite grasped playing away from home at this stage. There was a stat today, Rangers home form, so playing at Ibrox, 28 points from a possible 30. Rangers away form, 12 points from a possible 30. It just shows the massive gulf that this team has, and there's been plenty of people in the comments already saying it's a mentality thing. When it comes to it, it might be a quality thing, a squad depth thing. We can kind of dig into that and see what we think. But JB, Ross has given us his view on how he saw that game. What are your overall thoughts on the performance?
Yeah, I think the starting 11 for me was one that I know I put in our group chat. I wasn't digging it. I know the easy option was to go straight from the team that deserved to start. Unfortunately, the team sometimes that deserves to start isn't necessarily what you should go with at times. I was very much of a view of, are we going to slip back into what we seen for the majority of that game? The first 20 minutes was electric. To Ross's point, I thought we started really well. And I think the players were still on a high. And I thought, right, come on, let's go and put this to bed. And then at 2-0, you just started to see that, oh, here we go. We're going to start creaking. We're going to start doing it. We're going to get a little bit deeper. We're going to start a couple of little slack passes. But the first 20 minutes, as I say, we should have been out of sight, which we haven't been saying a lot in the first half this season. So I'm sitting there thinking the light bulbs clicked with this group, like, and I know we keep clinging on to hope that the light bulb is going to click, but I just felt as if, from a start 11 perspective, a little bit of freshness as well. I thought Danilo could have come in, and then you could sacrifice either a Hadji or a Bajrami, depending on which of them was kind of feeling it. Then as I say, after 20 minutes, I was sitting there going, no, manager's got it bang on. And then the players have just ran over the manager, literally, because the manager set them up for success. He sent them out positive, go and carry on, do what you were doing. They did. And then after 20 minutes, it just collapsed. And yeah, a lot very similar to what Ross was saying there in terms of the going into the game. I think I joked about earlier on in the week. I said, don't worry, lads, we're going to beat Celtic 3 or 4-0, and then we're going to get beat by Hibs. So buckle up. And it was starting to edge towards that, and I thought, oh no, don't want to be a jinx here. But I say there's lots of positives to take from the game. I say Ross touched on it again there. The Igamane was fantastic. I thought some of his hold-up play was really good. I still think domestically his best position is going to be coming in off the left. Once we've got a settled striker, who that is going to be, we're still waiting to see. Just because I think he'll be able to float into space. He won't have to do all the hard yards he had to put in today up there on his own. I think as a unit against Celtic on Thursday, we played as a team. Whereas today we slipped back into that playing as individuals. There was huge gaps between our defenders and the front man. Whereas on Thursday, it felt as if we moved as a unit all the time, and that's what we do in Europe really well. If you sometimes you really see it when you sit behind the goal, because you kind of see the team moving, and especially some of these European grounds they pen us into, you really see the team moving either to the right if the game's on the right hand side, or if we defend in really good strong blocks and move forward. But it just felt as if today we slipped back into that, as I say, that individual style, which we hate. So, but yeah, it's just frustrating after Thursday. We were hoping it was going to be the springboard, but once again, it was just another opportunity for the players, and you could argue the manager to show what we've been seeing for the most of this season.
Yeah, I think when it comes to it, and we'll focus on the first 30 minutes just now, Ross, when I come to this, but I think for me, the first 30 minutes shows that that's not on Philippe Clement today. I think I've been one of Philippe Clement's biggest critics. I asked after we beat Celtic, should they still be sacked? I think Clement's on borrowed time still, but for me today, that wasn't on him. And part of me looks at that and goes, you can see what he's trying to do. He just doesn't have the players to do it, and I don't know where that then sits in my head of, well, if he had more players or a better squad, for example, that he could shift people in, shift people out, then it might be different. But the converse of that is, I guess, that he's trying to do that even when he knows he doesn't have a good enough squad to do it, and that's where he's tripping up, and that's where he's falling over. But that first 30 minutes, Ross, I'd said to some of my mates earlier on, if we play like we did against Celtic, against every team, with that energy, that aggression, that press, that pace, then we'll beat any team in Scotland, because they can't deal with it for a sustained period of time. And we came absolutely flying out the blocks today. I think we had 10 or 11 shots, 6 of which were on target in the first 25 minutes, which is unheard of for us. We've been struggling to create chances for a lot of games this season, but we were right there and right at it. And I thought, this is actually really fun to watch. And even from the first minute, I mean, the Hamza Igamane goal after 4 minutes, the fact that something that we've been crying out for, someone to hit the byline, pull it back, and then a striker in there to finish it, and it was exactly what you wanted, and it was a fantastic finish. Hamza Igamane's just gone from strength to strength. There was a lot of criticism over the club at the start of the season of why we bought him. He's not, if he can't start straight away. Even when he came into the first team, he was quite raw and took on a few games to get started. But now he's absolutely flying, and that first goal is exactly what you want to see from a Rangers striker.
Yeah, I mean, I touched on at the beginning of the podcast that I thought all round today, and it seems like an easy one to say, right, because he scored a hat-trick, but I just thought all round he was brilliant. I mean, there was one in the second half actually that Chris Sutton picked up in the coverage, which I thought, giving the Rangers some praise. But he lets the ball run across him, and the Hibs boy goes to press him, and he just knocks it through his legs, like as if he's not even. It's just he seems to be one step ahead of everyone. And I think that's the way you always look at a player that comes here that you just know is going to go to another level. Like he already looks to have the technical ability to play in a top 5 league like easily. It just comes down to luck in terms of injuries, things like that, just consistency. There's no doubt the ability's there. In terms of the first goal itself and the overall start, Rangers started really well. I think Hibs played into that. I don't really understand teams at the moment that would come out and play that way against Rangers and make it that kind of high intensity end-to-end game, because most teams have seen that if you play a wee bit more defensive and keep your shape, Rangers will struggle. And I think at times Hibs done that in the second half. And I think that's why we never really managed to kind of get a footing back into the game. But yeah, great first goal. Yanis Hadji does well, gets I suppose towards the byline and cuts the ball back. And it's something we've spoke about in this podcast numerous times that we've not done it enough throughout the years. Cuts the ball back. Hamza Igamane again showing his intelligence. His movement's really good. He understands kind of where the space is. He drops in, he drops out. He's making the defenders make a decision in terms of, do I cover the 6-yard box for the ball across the front post, or do I sit deep with them and they don't make the right choice? And I tweeted about it. It was clinical. It was ruthless, which is something we just don't have. And I actually don't think we've got it in either Dessers or Danilo. Danilo has a lot of goals in him. He's scored plenty of goals since he came back, but we have seen at times he misses chances. That to me was a bit of a difference from Hamza Igamane today. He was ruthless. I mean, we'll come on to the header as well, but both goals in the first half are so well taken. And Rangers deserved it. They started really, really well. Kind of your overall point there about, Clement maybe having the players and things, and look, I think that's fair, and I'm with you. I don't really look at Philippe Clement today. I am one of the Rangers fans that believe that this is not the right manager, and we will have to make a change at some point. I'm now starting to believe that will be at the end of the season. And if you look at that away record, that is enough to remove a manager, right? So you don't really need to look at anything else. The away record, it's stinking, right? 12 points in 30. He's got 4 wins in his last 15 away from home. That's not good enough as a Rangers manager. You can talk about projects, you can talk about rebuilds, you can talk about stories, and you can try and get people to buy in for the long term. That's not good enough short term. There's never going to be a Rangers that is acceptable. It's never going to be acceptable. So he has to work on pushing this club forward in terms of the away record. But overall, I thought we started well in the first half. Again, it comes back to that, and I spoke about it earlier. I don't think we have that game kind of management understanding at times. You go 2-0 up, Hibs kind of change their approach a little bit. For me, I'm looking for Rangers at that point to maybe take the sting out of the game. Just kill the game. Don't let Hibs build any momentum. Take the sting out of it. Try and keep the ball a little bit more. If the ball turns over, just keep your shape. Try and frustrate. These are things that I don't think Philippe Clement can direct from the sideline. He needs to allow his players to manage the game. And I don't think we've seen that at times. You're turning the ball over needlessly. And then I think their goal kind of comes from that. The ball's turned over before. I know it's a set piece and things like that, and we can't clear it. But good finish from Martin Boyle. He's done that to us before. But yeah, I just thought that first half could have been so much more comfortable because we had started so well. But unfortunately, we didn't maybe have that lead going into half time. But yeah, look, I think, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, Craig, we saw a lot of great stuff in that first half. And it's maybe why I'm not as, I don't know, I'm certainly down because we've not won 3 points, and maybe there's a element of me that's just accepted that this is going to just be a difficult season and the league's gone, right? I think we're all in the same place. But I think it is because I've seen such positive sparks in that first half that I'm maybe the best way to describe it is deflated, because I thought that performance in the first 30 minutes, it warranted more. But unfortunately, if you make those type of mistakes in these games, you will get punished. And we've seen it again today. It's happened too many times. 2 points out of the last 9 away from home. It's not good enough. It's never going to be good enough.
Yeah, JB Ross has touched on the first goal there. So I think between the first and the second goal, we had so many shots on goal. I think Czerny had quite a few. It was kind of spread around the front three in terms of the shots on goal and the chance creation, the ball in behind. Hibs backline. The timing of the runs and the passes was great, and we were getting through pretty much any time we wanted that well. It's just that final part of the move, I guess. But the second goal, almost better than the first goal, I think, given how little pace was on the cross, given how far out he was. Everyone was, even the commentators were surprised when it found the back of the net. But I think it shows the versatility that Igamane has and the types of finishes, but also the movement that he has. And we've all seen evidence of the strength, I think, that he possesses, and how good he is at holding the ball up and holding off defenders that are much, much bigger and look much stronger than he does. But he's got a real knack of doing that. But that second goal, so often we're crying out for, we need to get the second goal and we'll be okay. We need to get the second goal and we'll be fine. We got that second goal and 25 minutes gone and we're 2-0 up. And at that stage, what you thinking? I mean, I'd said it on the podcast, I messaged mates and said, it's actually really fun to watch. What were you thinking at that stage?
Yep. Yeah, no,
you should have known at that stage, Craig. You should have known. You're telling any of your mates that this is fun to watch. You should have known what was going to happen after that one.
Keep your phone in your pocket. Yeah, I think it was giving me Kilmarnock home vibes, where we went. I think we went 2-0 up in the first half, and you thought this could genuinely be as many as we want it to be. Do you know what I mean? This is good. This is what we want. The players, as touched on earlier, getting it. What I loved about Igamane's first two goals, the first one was actually just a hopeless punt up the pitch, and he had no right to end up winning the ball and holding it up. He showed, really, I agree with Ross, he showed a little bit of everything today, and I thought that was something I didn't know that he had it in his locker, was that kind of determination to win the ball back. He's naturally going to get the Morelos comparisons, because I don't think you don't really see strikers who kind of show that type of style of play. But I think he's actually got a little bit more. He's definitely got more technically than Morelos. So I think to get the first one, as he worked so hard to get it, but the second one just showed that little bit of class. I watched it back there just before we come on. I didn't realise how clever his movement was. He started off on the centre half, then he moved into the midfielder. So the centre half thinks that, oh, I've done my job, the midfielder's got him now. And he stepped off him again. Cracking cross by Bajrami. And the header was very similar to Danilo's away at Motherwell the other week. But he didn't get the solid connection, but he's got it for our first headed goal of the season, which is absolutely wild. So that was one I picked up on. I don't know if it was on Sky or it was on Twitter or something, but that just goes to show where we've been this season. Do you know what I mean? The first headed goal. I don't know how many goals we've scored this season, but normally you'd like to think we'd probably be in double figures. But yeah, no, I 100% agree there. He doesn't. There is the odd time he swings at things, Igamane, where you just go, oh, this is going to go absolutely anywhere. He's either top corner or rosette at times. But that's going to come from a lad who's played next to no professional football, certainly at the level and the expectation that we've got. And it could just be, I know we give Clement, and I don't think there's anyone more vocal than me, and I'm in the same boat, and I will probably get to him later. He's not the man to take us forward. I don't think long term. I just don't think he's got that grasp yet of there's a massive difference between playing in Europe and playing against them to what there is playing domestically. But unless he can activate that switch, but unfortunately, I think he's too arrogant for it. I think there's a bit of a snobbiness when it comes to, it can't be that hard. It'll play our way and it'll be fine. But all that happens when if you play the Rangers way that we've been playing this season, it's great against certain teams and it'll work. And I'm less fearful going to Old Trafford next Thursday, who've just come off a draw with Liverpool, who are arguably the most informed team in Europe, than I am Dundee on Thursday. There's more chance of Dundee taking something off us than Man United, and that is ridiculous. And I know you might just go, oh no, that's just a Rangers fan just kind of overthinking things. It's not. Do you know what I mean? Because you just know the players, if all going well, are on it. They'll all be focused, laser focused. They'll work hard. They'll play as a unit. They'll play as a team. On Thursday, if we go 1-0 down, it'll just be a case of, seen it coming. Do you know what I mean? So, but yeah, back to the positivity of the first 20 minutes. It was really good. Enjoyed it, and I'm all for it. If we can sustain that for 60, 70 minutes of a game like we did on Thursday, then I'll be a happy guy. But as soon as things started to unravel today, it was almost a case of, oh, right, let's panic. And you've seen that. And I know we say you can't blame the manager for today's performance, but I think that the results in the lack of points that we're picking up on the road, there's either a mentality issue there from the manager or there's a mentality issue there from the players. One of them's going to survive, and unfortunately, not going to be able to get rid of the playing squad. And I think there's plenty of ability within the playing squad. I just don't think he's either he's not changing things tactically, or he's not motivating the players enough. The players aren't coming off that pitch fearful of what's waiting for them at half time and full times away from home. Domestically, you're always going to get the crowd, and I know there's a really good crowd follows the team, but it's one stand. But whereas at Ibrox, there's no hiding place for the players, hence why the home record's so good as well. So, but yeah, first 20, I'm signed up for it. Give us more of that.
I think we're all signed up for the first 20 minutes. It's the rest of it we've got issues with. But before I come on to a comment that Jamie Strachan's put in around how we sort of set up as a team after that second goal, Ross, how much of this actually, or the weaknesses that we are seeing, is down to or amplified by our defensive injury record and the fact that we're playing Robin Proper, who at the moment is maybe third or fourth choice centre half, depending who you speak to, and Dujon Stelling, who's a fullback that's played every position on the pitch. How much of it is down to the fact that actually the players playing at centre half probably aren't entirely comfortable there, are trying to do a job for us, and it's not anywhere near the standard or the level of player that we'd expect to be there if our squad is fully fit?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that it must be having an impact because you're playing players out of position. The counter to that is they just played Celtic 3 days ago and didn't concede a goal, right? So you're playing the best side in the league here. Don't enjoy saying that, but it's the truth of the moment. And you don't concede a goal. And then you go away to Easter Road, and look, Hibs have been in good form. They were the form team in the league. I think coming into this game, they had 13 points out of the last 15, so they've been doing really well. David Gray's turned that around, and you concede 3. It's difficult. I can see both sides of the coin in that one. I think obviously the second goal's a penalty, right? So I'm sure we'll come on to that, whether it was a penalty or whether it was not. But I think that the 2 other goals we can see today are down to not having real centre backs in there with real physicality. I mean, Robin Proper, we've seen the other day against Celtic. If he's not tested in terms of a physical aspect, which Kyogo's not really going to do, he's a striker who's going to play in the shoulder. It's all about his movement and things like that. You're not really going to be tested in that. We've seen he was fine, and he's shown that in Europe. I think again today, Proper was okay, but he just lacks that physicality you're probably needing in these situations. The first goal for me, I think a John Souttar in that scenario or Leon Balogun, they just come and deal with that. They just kind of get everyone else out the way. The ball's up in the air. I'm dealing with that. I'm just getting out of the box. We just can't seem to clear it. And again, we have bodies in there, but no one really takes command of it. And yeah, it's similar to the Motherwell second goal as well, where it's kind of the ball's touched down. Boyle gets a bit of space and he puts it in the corner. It is a good finish. And I think the third one as well is the same. You know, it's a set piece into the 6-yard box. I think you have to look at Liam Kelly here. I see a lot of comments talking about Liam Kelly and saying, you know, he had a poor day today and he's probably not good enough. I was one that put it up for debate in terms of Liam Kelly. Does he deserve to keep his place? Because I thought he'd done well in the appearances he had. But I think you've seen today some of the vulnerabilities he has in his game. Doesn't command his box the same way as Jack Butland. You know, I think that one that comes into the 6-yard box in the second half that Rocky Bushiri scores. Yeah, firstly, I think one of the centre-backs deal with that. A John Souttar or a Leon Balogun, I think they just deal with that. Rocky Bushiri doesn't beat a Leon King in that scenario. But I also think Jack Butland just commands his area. You know, I think he just comes out and he punches that away. So yeah, I think it is fair. I know we're all wanting to jump on the team in Clermont whenever we can at the moment, but come on, you know, you look at that game in isolation today. There is no doubt if a back 4 are missing, how many would you say they're missing? 4 of their usual starting back 5. Is that fair? Butland, Tav, Balogun, and Souttar. Yeah. You know, so you're looking at it and you're going, yeah, it probably would have an impact. Again, I would argue and say you still can deal with these these conceded goals in a better way. And I think the manager has alluded to that several times in his press conference, saying we are giving away cheap goals. That's the best way to describe it. They're cheap. Hibs didn't really create a lot today. Before they'd scored the goal, they'd obviously hit the post and things after that and probably deserved to go on and win the game at some stage. But I just think, the goals that we're conceding at the moment are cheap. And I really wish I could sit on here and just say, Clement's, should be sacked and it's his fault. Like, he's been dealt a tough hand at the moment. It comes to his back four and looks like it's going to get worse. John Sterling, I think, will be out for at least 2 or 3 weeks. That looked quite a bad one. Robin Propper is going to be suspended at some point. I don't think we've worked out whether it's Dundee yet or not. I don't think anyone's aware of that.
7 days after the booking, isn't it?
Yeah.
It comes into force. So.
He might make the Dundee game, which obviously helps us. I'd rather he was missing for a home leg. But you're potentially going to go into one of these games with Leon King and Clinton and Ciala as your back four, right? They are B team players. There's no other way of putting it, right? They're B team players. Clinton and Ciala has been signed. Looking back now, it's a bit strange how much kind of
hype the word around it.
We put all over that, but I always thought at the time he's never played a first team game. This boy is not coming to play first team football. He's never played any. So you look at that, and Leon King, I've said that in several podcasts this season, he is not fancied. This manager does not fancy him. He gets thrown on today.
I think he's
well,
Rangers is more than numbered.
Well, there you go. And I think today, I wouldn't be too harsh on him because, again, he's thrown into a scenario that he doesn't really seem to get a run, Leon King. It's like, well, we're desperate, you need to play, and I suppose that's difficult. But at the same time...
I sound really harsh, but it's a bit... It comes a point where you're thrown into enough scenarios that you've either got to see either sink or swim. And I think that's a fair observation as well, because I think a lot of people would look at it and go, I know, but this is your opportunity. It's time to grab it. You're going to have to deal with these situations, and he's not really done that either. So, the main point is, of course, this is having an impact. That is. But unfortunately, people aren't going to have the sympathy for you when you're already 11 points behind. Because for the majority of the season, you have had a relatively strong back four and you were 11 points behind. So you look at the game in isolation today. Is it the worst result? No, it's not. Was it the worst performance we've ever seen? No. But the problem is people aren't going to look at it in isolation. They're going to look at it as the collective. They're going to look that you're already 11 points behind. You're going to look that we won an Old Firm game 3 days ago, performed really, really well. And then 3 days later, you've dropped points and you've pretty much made it redundant, right? Let's just say as it is. Yeah, everyone can learn and go, yeah, but we Clement beat Celtic for the first time, whatever. Aye, that's fine. But the points, it's redundant now. Yeah. So, I think it's fair to say that it will be having an impact. Of course it would. I think the big thing for me about this team is that you look at where we've dropped points, and all the games that we've dropped points are ones that you look at the start of the season and go, oh, that's going to be a difficult game. If you look at where we've dropped points, Tynecastle away, Pittodrie, Celtic Park, Easter Road, I forgot.
You're going to list every ground in Scotland here, Craig, because we dropped points.
It'd be easy to say the ones we've won. Ross County and...
I was actually hesitated because I forgot the name of St Mirren Stadium because I was going to call it St Mirren Park, but it's not. Is it Smythe or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
And then for Park as well. If you look at those are all places where we've dropped points before, but you still expect to win most of them, and maybe one or two. Yeah. Over the course of the first half of the season, you think, right, we might get a couple of draws in there, but the fact we're dropping points, every single one of them is a huge red flag, I think, for all of us at this stage.
12 points from 30. 12 points from 30. That is, until I seen that statistic last week, I probably wouldn't have believed it if someone had said it to me. I probably would have went, nah, that can't be right. 12 points from 30. But now that I seen it last week when it was 11 from 27 or whatever, that is abysmal. Like, that is really, really, really bad. So clearly we know where the problems are. But the problem is you've had 3 games in the space of the last 10 days that we've played away from home. You've taken 2 points from 9. So the support aren't looking at it and going, oh, I can see this coming out the other end. In fact, the support are looking at it and going, this is going to continue. We're going to continue to drop points away from home. Like, how big is that gap going to be at the end of the season? It's difficult at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely is. I said I'd bring in Jamie Strachan's comment, and I will just before we get to talking about the penalty, JB, but Jamie Strachan said, for me, it comes down to who decided to step off after the second goal. If that's Luke Clement's decision, then he's not really learning. We're also crying out for a centre-half that can actually win a header. We've spoken about the last part, obviously, just there. But in terms of once we went 2-0 up, and we did seem to drop off. And I don't know if it was, I think it was Ross said, right, when you go 2-0 up, you just want to be like, just take control of the game. You don't need to do a great deal. Just control the possession, control the tempo. Just don't give Hibs a sniff. But we did seem to drop off, and by dropping off, we kind of let Hibs back into the game. I don't imagine Philippe Clement is standing there as soon as we score a second goal and then just says, stop doing what you're doing, and just on you go back, drop deep, but 10, 15 yards further back. Do you think it's just a subconscious thing from the players, or why do you think the team has done that? Because we've seen them do it plenty of times when they go 1-0 up, never mind 2-0 up.
Was that for me or Ross?
For you, JB, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. No, I think it's just a mentality shift that they kind of see when things aren't going well. It's almost a case of everything just seems to drop. And I talk about them spaces between the defence, the midfield, and the forward line. We'd never got caught out like that on Thursday because everyone was laser focused, whereas it was just a quick 1-2 and round the corner. And where you do sympathise for Hadji in that situation. I don't know if we're going to talk about the penalty incident now, but it was almost a case of we've let them in, okay, but Hadji has busted an absolute gut to get back into the right position. And I think he's really unlucky. I can see both sides of it.
I'm still unconvinced. The more I see it, actually, the less I think it's a penalty. I think on first viewing, I thought,
I said straight away that's a penalty. He's got the wrong side. He's misjudged it. It was similar to, we got a penalty a couple of years ago. Remember that, when we used to get penalties, the good old days. We got one a couple of years ago where Morella's got the wrong side of a Kilmarnock defender, and it was a coming together, and it was almost a case of, oh, we've got away with one there. But that one today, the more, to your point, the more I've seen it back, the more you go, that's just not a penalty. There's a really good, images are starting to appear now where you see that, is it Josh Campbell? He's put his arm across Hadji and he's initiated the contact, and then Hadji, it's hip on hip. The ball's gone past Campbell when the togetherness has happened. And then obviously Campbell's then ended up taking Hadji down. So you can see why Hadji would have been frustrated. I think it was one of them. If the referee hadn't have given it, I don't think VAR would have. So I think that just goes to show it's that fine line of just a really unusual situation. And if that was the 95th minute, then I'd probably be sitting here probably having a lot more sympathy for the Rangers team. I'd probably have a lot more sympathy for the manager. But the fact is, they haven't got a lot of goodwill in the bank, so therefore it's almost a case of, right, go and bounce back, go and show that you've got the character to go and still go on and win the game. We've had a setback, and we did. We bounced back, and I thought, oh, well, that's shown a little bit. That showed that they got that little bit of grit. But then I think in terms of then the mentality, then once we went to 3-2, was just almost a case of, how many times we said this season, the players almost looked as if it was job done. We looked as if it was job done when we got back to when we were at Motherwell. We looked as if it was job done at St Mirren a few weeks ago. And they just seem to have this trigger. And again, I don't know whether it's coming from the players or it's coming from the manager just to relax. There was one thing that worried me. There was one a few weeks ago where the players were somebody interviewed Clement, and I think we come back and win, and the manager said, I didn't give them a rollick at a half time because I don't think that's what they needed. Looking into their eyes, they didn't need a rollicking playing for Rangers and not winning at half time. I remember Gerrard absolutely raging after a Dundee at home where we won 5-0, and he was kicking off because we really won the second half 1-0. And I think Stuart McCall tells a cracking story where he talks about Walter. And again, I know I'm comparing them to obviously big different situations, but he says we were winning 2-0 away at Hearts in one of Stuart McCall's first games, and Walter Smith has absolutely tore shreds off the squad. I just get the impression here it's almost a case of everything's nicey nice and we'll just keep doing the right thing, keep doing everything nice. At some point, we've got to roll the sleeves up and go, you know what, we're going to grind this one out. And I don't feel as if we've got that in our locker. That might come. To quote the manager, it is a very young squad with not a lot of experience, not a lot of first team football at this level. It's just so unfortunate that it's consistent errors, consistent change in shift in mentality that this team just keep on showing. And it's a shame because even this season, right? And if you look at some of the results, I sometimes watch the match highlights like a week after the game, just prior to our next game. Once the emotions kind of got out of it, and unfortunately, after most away games, you kind of just sitting there fuming. But when you watch the games back, in a lot of the games, we've had chances to win pretty much every game we've been involved in domestically this season, and you could argue we haven't been clinical. Now, today we were clinical. Igamane certainly was clinical. He probably had 2 other chances that you'd go, like to have seen him done better there. So maybe once we start to see the team become more clinical, we'll start to finish games off. That today had an opportunity once we went 3-2. Hibs were in the bin. Do you know what I mean? Their heads should have absolutely dropped, been gutted the fact that we've gone on and won it. But we knew as Rangers fans, and then you start to think, if the fans' mentality is we're not going to hold on to this, then then the players are naturally the same. I think that's what we're seeing at the moment. It's just that inevitability that we will give away chances, and that's something that we need to. And again, once we get a settled defence, that might be something that we might be able to home in on. But yeah, it's hard to point. Is it the manager? Is it the players? It's really hard to say. Individual errors are on the players. Do you know what I mean? But giving up large portions of the pitch and giving up possession as when teams start to come on top of us, that there's a little bit of tactical stuff in there for me as well.
Yeah. Craig, can I jump in just on that point that JB made there in terms of Rangers having the the chances to win the games this season? I think that's fair. I think I seen a graphic actually on Twitter the other day. I think it was from JJ Bull. I think he works for the Athletic and things like that. And he put up the kind of wise scout statistics of the league table this season, and the expected points, which is a combination of expected goals and things like that, and it shows you how many points it predicts you should have had this season. I think Celtic were on 44 they were predicted to be on, and Rangers were predicted to be on 41. That's what they reckon that's what the league should be. Okay, so that's Celtic not having 6 points that they should, and Rangers they're 2 points off or something, right? So it shows that we should probably be higher. The points gap should be closer. But unfortunately, that is football. You have to take your chances. Yeah. And we've seen that again today. We have chances to kill games if we don't take them. We've seen that throughout. We've seen that last season, didn't we? When we got to that really good position in the league. And I always think back to that Dessers chance at Ross County. That's always the one that comes to mind, where you've got an opportunity to win the game and you win the points at crucial stages. Unfortunately, when does the time come where we sit back and go, okay, are we unlucky or are we no good enough? Right? That's really where we are at this point. I just think we're good enough, and it's up to the manager to try and find the answers for this.
Yeah, Ross, just to jump in there, Ross, just on that one, because it kind of feeds into the next question I was going to ask. I think we kind of covered most of the game, but I think actually after the Celtic game and after the Celtic win, I heard quite a few non-Scottish football fans talking about the Old Firm on different podcasts, and they were kind of saying, actually, if looking from the outside, Rangers look like they've got a better squad and Fleck wants a better manager than they're showing, and actually Rangers look like they're underperforming as a team, whereas Celtic look like they're overperforming what you'd expect from them just looking from the outside. Is that something you agree with? Obviously that then feeds into the expected points bit that you just spoke about there. Is that something you would agree with at this moment in time?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, yeah, if you look at the data that I just highlighted there, that's probably what that suggests, right? I don't know if people with these opinions have maybe looked at that data and that's kind of formed their opinion. But it does show that maybe the points cap shouldn't be what it is. But at the same time, we have said over the years that Celtic at times seem to have that kind of ruthlessness within their squad that we don't seem to have. And we have had a lot of changes over the past couple of years. They maybe do have a more settled side at this point, and we're maybe trying to find that. But I suppose that maybe goes to the point where we've been unlucky, and I just don't think we have been unlucky this season. I think we have had plenty of times to kill off games and perform better, and we haven't. And I just
think
think
masters of our own downfall this season.
Absolutely. And there's been games where, okay, Rangers have missed chances, but there's also been games where we have been rotten, like really, really bad. So I would ask a lot of these, podcasters, their opinion if they'd watched Rangers week in, week out like we have. I don't know if they would look at it the same way, because there has been times, as in the sport this season, fans we've looked at Philippe Quant and felt, what are you actually trying to do? Because I don't see what this team are trying to do when they're out there. So yeah, I would probably go there and I wouldn't say we're unlucky. I would say we're just not good enough at this point in time. I think today highlights that again. I do think we have individual quality in there. I think you've seen it and in these last 2 games. That there are good players in there. Some of them will be a bit off it today, but against Celtic, you're coming up against the best side in the league at the moment. And a lot of these players play to the ability that we know we have. So there are really good players in there. We just don't seem to have found a system that lets them all flourish yet. And I think that's going to be the decision this January transfer window, which I'm sure we're going to come on to discuss in terms of, who we go for and things like that. But we need a base for these players to flourish. And I'm not sure if this manager is going to find that. That's the problem.
It feels like he's stumbled upon a lot of the positive things that he's got. It feels like he's stumbled upon it rather than he's went out and they've set out and they've trained for it and stuff like that. It does feel like he's been forced into a certain way of playing because of player availability, or he's been forced into a certain way of playing just in terms of something's not working, so you try something else.
You look at Hadji. Hadji just coming back in has given us a spark that just wasn't there, was it? Do you know what I mean? He's come in and for all he has got faults, Hadji, but you can just see he's come back and he's just give us that little bit of something. And just something you said there, Ross, in terms of the XG and all that around the work. Is anywhere else like Scottish football in terms of the style of play and the type of goals we concede? Do you know what I mean? Just the big long punts and the aggression that comes in the second balls that we don't seem to win. But yeah, I 100% agree. One of my favourite parts of this season was that Kilmarnock game at home. I know it's easy to say that we won. Igamane was coming off the left, and then you had, I think it was Danilo was high, and then Hadji was in the 10. And I just thought, he's done it. He's found sort of formation that actually just complements this group of players. And then we went to Ross County. I think we won there. We won. Igamane scored early. And we thought, this is it. And then what happened? We played Tottenham and we played Celtic in the cup. And then all of a sudden, them 2 games prior to that, I was going to say break, hardly the break, but 2 them big games just got forgotten about. They just got put in the bin. And you need to have 2 players on the pitch at all times that are goal scorers, that are just going to be a threat for 90 minutes. They do it. They've always got 2 or 3 players that are a goal threat all the time. That's just something I just don't think we haven't got over the line yet.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I was going to ask you your view on the sort of underperforming piece or opinion that I spoke to Ross about there. JB, do you feel like this squad is underperforming what it can do?
I would say so in certain quarters. I think the players are very selfish. And what I mean by that is you can't go and perform. I'm talking technically now. I'm not talking about playing against low blocks and stuff. The players are laser focused against Malmo, Celtic, Olympiacos, Spurs. You can just see it in their eyes. We don't give the ball away. We just look as if everybody's up for it. People are firing into tackles. People are doing stuff quickly. People are just really, they're playing for the shirt. I don't think some of these players know no one cares how I perform against St Mirren and Motherwell and Ross County. These super scouts and stuff, they're not going to be arsed. Do you know what I mean? They're gonna see me against Malmo. They're gonna see me against Celtic, Olympiacos, games in Europe, high profile games. It's been the same for the last few years. You look at that European run, some of the teams that we absolutely bullied. The Leipzig team, you look at the quality that was in that team, that Dortmund team. Even going into as bad as we were last year, some of the performances we put in against the likes of Olympiacos and stuff, the players, this group of players that we've got at the moment, I think are in it for themselves. Which, from a manager's perspective, how do you manage that situation? Yeah. I think that's where I think a lot of the fans are getting frustrated with the same faces. I think there has definitely been a little bit of a freshness. And I think the fans are wanting the players to do well because I think we know there's ability there. There's no doubt. Not one, I've said this before, not one St Mirren player gets into the Rangers starting 11. Not one Motherwell player gets into the Rangers 16. Not one of that Hibs team today, maybe one of the centre-halves, given our current circumstance, gets into our starting 11 today. So if that's the case, then it's mentality. And that's something that they're going to... if it's not this manager, that's what our manager needs to do. That our manager, it's very similar to them across the city. They've had a couple of managers that have been able to be better than if they've got better players, they pick up more points than the opposition, and that's it. And we're not doing that. Do you know what I mean? We should have our away form is as bad as Dundee United. It's Dundee United are ahead of us. I mean, forget Aberdeen; they're just on an absolute suit. They just jumped off a bridge, haven't they? But in terms of the mentality of this group of players, for me, is not where it needs to be, and I just don't know how we change that. Is there enough leaders on the pitch? Potentially not. The fact that we've been forced to give the armband to a 23-year-old Belgian lad who's showed a little bit of form over the last few weeks. He's our leader. That probably goes to show that there's a real lack of leaders within this team. Now, you could argue, yeah, but Tavernier's out, Balogun's out, Butland's out. The fact that, I mean, I know this was probably more of an old firm one. The fact that Robin Proper, a 30-odd-year-old captain from his previous club, wasn't trusted to be given that armband goes to show there's a real lack of leadership kicking around that squad. And that's something that I think we're going to have to, I know it might be a bit aggressive, and I know we'll probably get onto it in a second. It's something we're going to need to address in January. We're going to need to get more winners, more people who really want to win, and people who put the lives on the line. Probably a bit dramatic, but you know what I mean. Put themselves on the line to be able to say, we're getting them 3 points today, and I don't care what it is. I mean, I'll use an example, and he's a horrific footballer. Liam Scales, domestically, apart from against us, where you start to see the step up in quality, is a fantastic SPFL player for an old firm team because he's just a dog. Do you know what I mean? He'll go and stick his head where it hurts. I don't think we've got anyone in our squad who'll stick the head where it hurts. Certainly from a defensive mindset. I don't think Proper will. I think Sterling probably would, to be fair, in his defence, but again, still unsure as to what his best position is. Balogun, if he sticks his head where he hurts, it's probably going to be out for 6 weeks. Souther probably would, but again, far too injury prone. And I mean, we're not even going to talk about Leon King, are we, in terms of where he has an NCR and stuff. So definitely, we need a big, nasty centre half. But we'll get to that there.
Let's move on to the January transfer window then, Ross. And potentially the most interesting part of Philippe Clement's post-match press conference wasn't the fact that he was decrying the fact that it wasn't a penalty. It was around the January transfer window when he said Patrick Stewart will address the press on our strategy for that and explain it, which is not the most inspiring way to answer that question. And it kind of filled me with quite a bit of dread. Actually, what was your reaction when you read that?
Yeah, that doesn't sound good. That, look, I actually look at the January window in a slightly different way. I think this January window will tell you whether Patrick Stewart backs Philippe Clement for the long term or not.
Yeah.
If we come out of this window and we think we've really not done enough business there, I think that tells you where this board are thinking and where Patrick Stewart is thinking. Does he really want to give Philippe Clement 2-3 signings that are his, right? You know, there can always be the argument that Niels Cobbin drives that and things, but he's the manager. So there's an argument to say they're his players. Do you want to go and give a manager 2 or 3 players that you don't really believe is the long-term answer at the end of the season? Because, not saying this is correct, but I could understand Patrick Stewart in his position where he looks at this and he goes, okay, we're 13 points behind. I can see quite clear that the books are not in a great place right now. We've seen that from the AGM results. Do I want to go and try and find the finance for this window to go and get players in for Philippe Clement? Or do I want to kind of sit on this for the next 4 or 5 months, try and get the house in order and give a new manager more to spend in the summer? That's maybe an alternative way of looking at this, but that's where my head went. Because for me, that sounded like Philippe Clement had not been given the assurances for January that he wanted. That sounds like Philippe Clement has went to Patrick Stewart and said, I need X, Y, and Z. And he's went, I don't think we can give you that. Now, the reasons for that answer, we'll never know, right? Is he saying that we don't have the finances for it? Or
I think I tend to agree with you there. I think that's the answer there was, I'm not taking the flack for this. That's basically what the answer was. He was like, someone above me has made a decision. They're going to come and tell you about it because I'm not taking the flak for this. I get flak for everything else. It's not my role. If they're not giving me players, they're not giving me players. But they can stand up in front of everyone and tell them. That was what that answer said to me.
That's certainly what it sounds like to me as well. That's the way I'm looking at that, because that just seemed, it's one of those questions you always get as a manager, right? In any press conference, you can just give it the usual line, right? We're going to be active in the market. We're going to be looking for players. We're going to want to do deals. He didn't do that. No. He made it clear that Patrick Stewart is going to come out and address things. Now, I can't see that being a positive, right? I don't think Patrick Stewart's going to come out to the press in the next couple of days and goes, Rangers will be spending 30 million this January. That's not going to happen, right? So I think the way we are looking at things at the moment is it's got to be a negative. Again, I don't really understand why your CEO would be coming out in January and laying out the plans. Again, that doesn't really make sense to me.
Especially when it's going to be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 days into a transfer window.
And it would just, these discussions for me would just be internal. I don't really understand why you have to. Now, a lot of people would say, oh, we want communication from the new CEO and the board. We want to know what's happening. But for me, with those things, I don't really know if you need to come to the table with that and tell everyone what's going on. You know, you can just explain it after the January transfer.
Absolutely no one, and you're just telling everyone, just killing all rumors of everything, and just
maybe. Again, I don't think that helps the club either, does it? You know, that's putting unnecessary pressure on yourself. I really just think you would leave it up for everyone to make their own assumptions on what's going to happen. But yeah, I think overall, the way I look at that, first of all, I found that strange. From Philippe Clement today, that seemed like, I'm just going to pass this on to someone else. I don't really need to be dealing with that. Now, again, that might come back to he's been dealing with more than he wanted to for the previous parts of this season, and he just wants to pass things on now and focus on the first team, which is something that I've been asking for a while, because I think he's been too involved with this rebuild of the whole club, and I don't think that's your focus right now, Philippe. I think you need to get this team playing and winning football matches. So maybe there's a bit of that, but I do think overall this January window is going to be very telling where the club see the long term. I think if we come out of this window and we're looking at it and we're going, we really needed more players there, I think that tells you all you need to know.
Yeah.
Because I think if I'm in Patrick Stewart's position, well, I said in the podcast last week publicly with yourself, Craig, when you asked me if you're Patrick Stewart, what would you do? Right? I would sack Philippe Clement. That's what I would do. Right? Now, if that is the decision they have made for the end of the season, I would assume that's not right. I would assume it's up in the air. But if you're starting to think towards that way, and you might think there's a change here that's required, you're not going to go out and give that manager funds in January, are you? You're just not. You're not going to do it unless, again, it's a Niels Coppin signing, and it's purely Niels Coppin. He's coming to the table and going, we identified this player 18 months ago. He's available. We need to do this deal now. Mohamed Diamande, for example, right? I could see that happening. And again, that one was a bit left field, and we didn't really feel that we needed them at the time. So again, it all comes back to, it's going to be a really interesting window, because I think if he doesn't get the players he wants, I think that tells you what you need to know for the end of the season. I think Philippe Clement will go if he doesn't get the players this January.
JB, what's your view on those comments after the game?
Yeah, I thought it was a hospital pass, to use a football for and it could have so easily have been avoided. Do you know what I mean? All he needed to say was, which is what he said, as every manager in the world would like new signings. We'll be working behind the scenes and we'll see what we can do. Done. To name drop Patrick Stewart, to say Patrick Stewart's now got to give an interview. He's now got to come on to Rangers TV. And I agree, he won't come out and say we're going to be spending 30 million. He's not going to come out and say we're going to come out and sign 5 players, because then if he doesn't sign 5 players, then it's something, you haven't done your job properly. I don't know. I think he's threw him under the bus big time. I think it's a sign of a desperate man clutching at absolute straws. And it was quite interesting. Was it Luke Shanley, who was doing the post-match for Sky? He went after Clement, which that tends to be the end of a manager, because Clement kept jumping back to the penalty, and Shanley kept going for him and saying, yeah, but you went 3-2 up and you still threw it away. Is that your frustration? And then Clement was like, yeah, but the penalty. Yeah, I think he's just got himself into a little bit of a tiz. And if Patrick Stewart doesn't speak now, between now and the end of the window, who's to blame for
I
that?
don't think he's got to the end of the window to speak. I think Clement's given him
He's got to the end of the week. Do you know what I mean?
Like
Yeah.
2 or 3 days to speak.
And that's it. And is Patrick Stewart ready for that? Is Patrick Stewart? Is there any other CEO in world football has to come out and do fucking interviews? It's just, and I get there's no other club like ours in terms of the obsession, but I can't foresee.
Do you know what I find really interesting about this, JB? Now you've brought that up. Patrick Stewart actually said in his initial interview with the club that he wasn't going to be talking to he wasn't going to be front of house. He wasn't going to be addressing absolutely everything because he said, I think the support would just rather me in here and doing the job, and just doing exactly what I've been brought in to do. I don't think you'd need me to be addressing absolutely everything. So for me, that goes against what he kind of laid out to begin with. I'm the CEO. I've been appointed as the CEO. I'm going to come in and I'm going to try and improve the club from behind the scenes. I don't really need to be, you'll see the success of, or you'll see whether my work is successful with what we do, whether we start winning games, blah, 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 right? You're going to see that in the long term. I don't need to be coming out every single month and saying we've done X, Y, and Z, right? So again, it goes against what the CEO came with to begin with, and saying, I don't really think you'll expect to see me often. But yeah, Philippe Clement today decided to go, you'll hear from Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart's going to address it. I don't. It just seems
the more you talk about it, the more bizarre it seems.
Yeah, like why would it come from that? Like, can you see any other club doing that? I can't see any other club.
It's not a thing.
Even like I'm trying to think of like the top clubs as well, like Premier League, where you have more kind of notable CEOs, you have more notable people in positions and board that people are more aware of. I can't think of any manager in the Premier League sitting down for a press conference saying, they'll come and let you know what we're doing in January.
If we had a director of football, that might be a slightly different situation. Like if you said Nils Cotton's going to come out and explain things, then you might kind of go, oh, that could be interesting. He might come and tell us about a team that we're going to merge with, or there's going to be a scouting department that we're about to announce that where we've signed this agreement with that Moroccan mob. Do you know what I mean? There could be something like that you'd kind of get, but yeah, it's yes, it's just going to be interesting. I 100% agree with Ross as well in terms of the type of signings. If this window shuts with a couple of loans, if you compare it to this time last year, when we brought in Silva was already, he was in, wasn't he, prior to the 1st of January, and it was almost a case of, we're on it. I thought there might have been somebody kind of already lined up that might have been announced over the last couple of days to kind of give us that little bit of a spark that we might need to try and get us on side, but I don't think that's coming. I think it's going to be a couple of loan signings, and if it does, it'll be quite damning on what we need. We knew we needed more on that last day. Remember when the window shut? We said, you know what? We just needed another couple. We needed that lad.
There was a guy from Southampton, wasn't there?
Samadozi. It was a Samadozi went to Anderlecht. We could have
rejected a loan bid for Matondo. We kept Rabbi Matondo and we rejected Samuel. I mean, honest, thanks for bringing that back up.
Thanks for doing,
honestly, it ruined my Sunday.
But yeah, I think that's what we're going to see. All this stuff about us maybe signing like a Diamandi type. I agree with Ross. That will only be if it's a Nils Cotton type of player. I don't think we'll sign anyone we might announce a couple that might sign at the start of the season. But they tend to come after the first few weeks, unless it's kind of already lined up.
I think Lyle Cameron's the one that I've seen a lot of Rangers fans talking about, and
I think that's that. I haven't seen enough of him. I've only seen him against us, and when I've seen him, I just think he's too lightweight for what we need for the battle at times. But he, by all accounts, for people who are really into it, really rate him. But I'm sure Johnny Walker from the group really likes him and stuff. So I'm sure he said he likes him. I might have just made that up. So apologies if not. But that one makes sense because we need to get a few more Scottish lads in there. And there's not a lot to pick from. So a couple of a good top end SPL players would probably win.
Yeah. I think so. And I've seen some links tonight to a Marseille centre half. Is it Bamo Maite?
Did they not sign him for 10 million in the summer? So that's a loan, isn't it? Already.
It's a loan. I think the report was a French newspaper that reported it, and basically said that Rangers just want a straight loan. They don't even want an option to buy So they just want a straight loan for the remainder of the season. So, but we do need a centre half desperately. So I don't think anyone that fancies coming in at this moment in time, to be fair. But I think I've not seen many other links as well, which is what kind of makes the Patrick Stewart comment interesting, because normally you're inundated with links, and obviously as a podcast we're across all those kind of things because they're good talking points and potentially incomings and having a look at those. But it's been really sparse at this moment in time. Can you see many coming in, Ross, at all? I think just a couple of loans might be it.
Yeah, I'm really split on this because I think we need it in terms of a squad. I think there's no debate about that. So I'd love to see players come in, because ultimately, I want the long-term success of Rangers, but I also want to watch my team win every single week. You know what I mean? So I'd love to see some players come in to help towards that. I'm not confident on that. I think they'll have to bring in a centre back, regardless of the long-term thoughts behind Clement that I spoke about earlier. They need to bring in a centre back. We were short at the beginning of the season. We're very short now, right? So someone has to come in. I think that'll just be a loan deal, to be honest with you. January is difficult. You don't really get a lot of deals over the line in January. And if you are trying to do a deal that's maybe higher in value, the selling club are going to try and rip you off. So that's just what comes in this window. You don't want to be selling players in the middle of the season. So yeah, I think Rangers will have to go into the market. If I was to predict right now, I think we'll be sitting at the end of the window exactly the same way we were in the summer, where I think we'll look at it and go, we don't have enough. Now, it depends on what the club value is enough, right? Because I think most within the club at the moment will probably accept that the league is going to be very, very difficult to bring back. So do you want to go and spend a lot of money right now when you are in the middle of a wee bit of uncertainty with the long-term you're a manager? Or do you want to save it for the summer? And I think that's a decision they will have to make. Not an easy one, because it's never easy as a fan to kind of write off certain games or seasons. And look, there's plenty to be up for grabs this season. Europa League, it looks like we're going to qualify, hopefully with an automatic place, which would be fantastic. And the Scottish Cup,
which is bizarre in itself, considering
exactly. So there is an opportunity there for Rangers to still have a relatively successful season, even though it's been pretty poor up until this point. It just depends on the level of risk that this board want to take and Patrick Stewart wants to take. And maybe Patrick Stewart is coming in and looking at it and going, we need to tighten things up a little bit. This is, we can't continue to have losses like that every year at the AGM. We need to tighten things up. And this is the start of it. So, yeah, I'm not hugely confident on signings, Craig. I think, like I said, I think we'll get to the end of the window, and I don't think we'll as a support, we'll feel we don't have enough to really do anything. And again, like I said earlier, I think that'll be very telling for the future of this manager.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting over the coming months, and then it's going to be really interesting over the next couple of days when we expect to hear from Patrick Stewart. Thanks to Fluke Clement, who did throw him, as JB described, the worst of the hospital passes you could probably ever get from the manager in charge. I think we'll round it off there because we're just past the hour mark. Sorry, JB, would you come in?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know what it'll be like? Remember when we were waiting for the inside Ibrox on the 55 season? They said it'll be on tomorrow at 7 p.m. and we're all there refreshing it, and it still hasn't landed. So, yeah.
You wonder what was on that to mean that it didn't land at all. There's going to be some unveiling in about 10 years' time of here's what actually happened. But yeah, I think we'll round off the podcast there. Thank you very much to Ross and JB for joining us for this one. Thank you very much to everyone for listening. If you enjoyed the video, please do drop a like. It helps us massively, as does subscribing to the TII YouTube channel or wherever you get your audio podcast, whether it be Spotify, Apple Music, or anywhere else. Kyle's going to be back on Wednesday with the guys doing a preview for the Dundee away game on Thursday, which I can speak for everyone, say we're all looking forward to massively. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Until next time, goodbye.